everyone hear me?
Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dear friends, dear Chabad Naples family, thank you all for joining us this evening as we gather in this auspicious week before Rosh Hashanah for an evening of inspiration and meaning. It is a blessing to be able to come together in this virtual way to usher in the Jewish New Year at such a unique moment in history. Yes, it is a most difficult time as our world faces a global pandemic with challenges we could have never imagined just a few months ago. But especially at such an uncertain time, it's important to do everything we can to make this holiday season as special and personally fulfilling as possible. This year, due to the pandemic, most in our community are not able to attend Shul in person. At Chabad Naples, we're trying to bridge that gap with various efforts to ensure that everyone in our community will be able to experience the spirit and inspiration of the high holidays wherever they may be. Tonight, we have the incredible Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson presenting on the theme of finding serenity, faith, and forgiveness. This Thursday, Fishel is coming back to Naples virtually. After a wonderful reception to a live concert in January, for those who remember, Dudu will return to the Chabad of Naples to perform a one-of-a-kind pre-holiday live virtual concert. On Friday, we have a drive-by challah and honey pickup for all your Rosh Hashanah treats. So even though you're baking challah yourself, it would be an honor to see you just even for a few minutes before Rosh Hashanah. Then on Sunday, on the second day of Rosh Hashanah itself, we'll be hosting a socially distanced shofar in the park event. In addition, we have sent out magazines with loads of information for the whole family. If you would also like a DIY guide on how to conduct prayers and the traditions from your own home, please reach out to the office and we'll mail one out to you. As always, if there's anything you need for the high holidays, please reach out to us. We are here and ready to help you in all ways. Tonight, I am humbly honored to introduce the esteemed Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. Rabbi Jacobson is one of America's premier Jewish scholars in Torah and Jewish mysticism. He is considered to be one of the most successful, passionate, and mesmerizing communicators of Judaism today, culling his ideas from the entire spectrum of Jewish thought and making them relevant to contemporary audiences. Rabbi Jacobson was the first rabbi ever to be invited by the Pentagon to deliver the religious keynote to the U.S. military chief of chaplains and to the National Security Agency. Rabbi Y.Y. also happens to be a dear personal friend who has honored us with a visit to Naples in the past, where he inspired so many in our community. If at any point you have questions for the rabbi, please type them into the chat and we will do our best to address them. The lecture should run about 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A. We are all excited for the inspiration ahead. And so, without further ado, Rabbi Jacobson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi Fishel. I just want to get a thumbs up. You can hear me and see me? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Rabbi Zaklos.
Yes.
You can hear me and see me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi Fishel, Rabbi Zaklos, for your kind and very gracious words. Thank you to Rabbi and Mrs. Zaklos for extending this warm invitation and privilege for me to address this extraordinary community live right here on Zoom, Chabad of Naples. Indeed, as Rabbi Zaklos just mentioned, it was quite a few years ago, I had the privilege of visiting your community and lecturing to quite a large audience. How many years ago was it, Rabbi?
It must have been at least 7-8 years ago.
And it was really very moving and incredible for me to see what this extraordinary young couple, Rabbi and Rebbetzin Zaklos, have done during the years of them and their families' work in Naples to build so many bridges, to bring together so many people from different backgrounds and walks of life and different affiliations, and I'm sure different belief systems and different persuasions and different types of lives. and I'm sure different intellectual, emotional, political bents. And yet, through their charisma, faith, love, wisdom, resilience, and passion, they have managed to wipe out the focus on differences and to accentuate the power of unity, the power of love, the power of mutual understanding and respect, and created the magic of community in a place that many predicted would be very, very difficult for them to do. And yet the impossible happened. So I want to share with you, dear community of Chabad of Naples, I have had the privilege over 15 or 20 years to travel to hundreds of Jewish communities across the globe, literally, from Ukraine to South Africa, from Perth, Australia, to Brazil and Argentina, and the whole gamut of many Jewish communities, universities, colleges, Jewish centers, schools, synagogues, etc. And I can tell you that one of the most dynamic and passionate rabbis that I have encountered over all these journeys, you are lucky to have with you in Naples. Both the rabbi and the rebbitzin are incredible people, and it's really amazing to see their work and their connections. And on a personal note, as Rabbi Fishel just mentioned, we've known each other for many, many years, from when he was a young teenager. And as some of you who know him and his history well, know that he's been through a lot, both in terms of family and personal life and other challenges and struggles. And I said this at the 40th birthday dinner for the rabbi, that his motto in life has become the motto of the Jewish people. And those are the words of King David in Psalms. King David says, Loi amos ki echya v'asaper ma'aseyah. I will not die. I will live, and I will tell of the glory of God. It's really the difference of one form of life and another form of life. Rabbi Fishel, I think, made that declaration early on in his life. I will not allow myself to be crushed, to be cut down. On the contrary, I will live and I will bring life to others. And I will continue to infuse my life and other people's lives with divine majesty and glory. And indeed, it's amazing to see the impact, the work, and I bless you and the entire community to go from strength to strength and achieve even more in this new year, 5781. May all of you have an amazing and awesome and sweet and prosperous year. So the theme that the rabbi asked me to address tonight is finding serenity, faith, and forgiveness during the age of Corona. Now, I want to share with you a few insights from Judaism, from a Jewish perspective, that I think can help all of us find more serenity, more calmness, more fortitude, more faith, and more forgiveness during this time. Let us be very clear. We are living now through a very tumultuous era, as the rabbi just mentioned in his introductory remarks. This has been a difficult year for everybody. No sector of humanity has been spared. None of our lives have been spared. Every one of us was affected in one form or another. Some of us more severe, some of us less severe, some of us socially, some of us financially. Some of us have lost loved ones. Some of us have fallen prey to the pandemic in one form or another. We all know close people, relatives, community members, teachers, neighbors who have been affected. But all of us, the young and the old, each in their own way, their lives have been transformed. There's been a lot of fear, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. In my travels now virtually, I stopped traveling physically. I've been home for many months. But in my virtual travels through Zoom with hundreds of communities throughout the world, there's this common theme of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear out there. People are simply facing the uncertain. There's pain. And this is the big question. How do we come into a new year with faith, with serenity, with forgiveness? Are these just dreams that are not feasible anymore, and anxiety is the name of the game? Or maybe our heritage, our faith, our Judaism can give us an approach, can give us a perspective that can help us achieve more calmness in our lives. So this is what I want to share with you this evening. Some ideas, some meditations, some perspectives. And at the end of this lecture, before we go questions and answers, I'm going to do with you a meditation. For those of you who want to join, feel free to join the meditation that we will do at the end of the lecture to help us achieve this space in a better way. The first thing that we must always remember, this is always the prerequisite that Judaism tells us in life, is you're never, ever a victim to circumstances. You are a co-creator of your circumstances. Never see yourself as trapped in any situation, even if the situation is difficult, even if I've been through circumstances that have indeed posed a serious challenge in my life. Even those of us who have been through trauma during our childhood years, during our teen years, and we know today that trauma sits in the body. But it's critical to understand that there's something in your core that transcends your trauma. The fact remains that many of us live life from a traumatized story. What does it mean to live life from trauma? To live life from trauma means that I live life from a very restricted place. And here I'm going to introduce you to a very famous Jewish principle, but I want to explain it a little deeper tonight. The Jewish principle is that on Rosh Hashanah, we are asked to coronate God, to make God our king. If you look through all the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, there's a continuous theme, and that is we tell God, Meloch ala olam kula bichvadacha, please become a king over the world. God tells the Jews, I want you to coronate me as your king. It seems funny. It seems comical. First of all, if God exists, he needs me to coronate him as king. And if I don't coronate him as a king, he won't be a king. I mean, if God is real and he's really behind everything and he's the omniscient, omnipresent, infinite creator who conceived everything, he is the presence before and the middle and after the Big Bang. He is the core, shaker and mover and designer behind every atom and every cell and every jinnah, behind every molecule, behind every blade of grass, and behind every heartbeat and flake of snow and droplet of rain and grain of sand, from the black hole to every single planet, from the smallest to the largest mammals, every reptile and creature, insect, mammal, fish, bird, amphibian, living organism, inorganic matter. If God is really, as Judaism teaches, at the essence of it all, he needs me, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson or Rabbi Zaklos or anybody in Naples to coronate him. What is this, a joke? What is this, a mockery? What does it mean? Every day in Jewish prayers, we have a prayer called Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol. And how does it end? We end with a prayer, and on Rosh Hashanah, this feature supreme. V'kablu chulam aleim et ol malchutecha. May everyone accept your kingship. May you rule on the whole world because kingship belongs to you. What is this supposed to mean? Generally, the word king makes us all queasy. We live in the 21st century. We live in a democracy. Thank God monarchy is obsolete. There used to be times when people lived in a milieu of kings. You couldn't get out of it. You had a king and you were a subject of the king. But those times, for the most part, are gone. We cherish our democracy. We cherish individual freedom. We cherish personal choices that we make. What's this idea in Judaism? God is the king and I accept his kingship. It seems very archaic. And let's face it, a lot of people can't relate to religion because it's so strange. The language is abstract. The language is ancient. It seems primitive. It seems narrow-minded. It seems archaic. Maybe in a generation when the king ruled over everything. So then it was nice to have a God who was the king of kings. But today, who wants kings? I'm not interested in kings. We want individual growth, individual prosperity. Yes, we all appreciate the value of leadership, but we appreciate the value of leadership that is created by the people and for the people. So the very concept of a king is very alien to our milieu and our Weltanschauung and our language. You know, before a Jew eats, we make a blessing. Before I eat an apple, I make a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz. Blessed are you, God, the king of the world, the king of the cosmos, who created this beautiful fruit from the tree. The same as when I eat a banana or a pear or a plum or a pomegranate or a kiwi or watermelon, or I eat a piece of cheese or an egg or anything else. There's always a blessing. And again, we refer to God as the king of the world. Very strange. So let's try to unravel this a little bit, my dearest friends. Here's the deal. It's not so much that God needs me or you to coronate him, the God in heaven. What God is asking is something else. Can you coronate the God inside of you? On Rosh Hashanah, I'm empowered to crown the divine inside of me, to make the divine inside of me king. And what does it mean to make God in me king? You see, somebody has to rule my life. That's the fact. The question is who and what? Will it be my trauma? Will it be my addictions? Will it be my fear? Will it be my insecurities? Will it be my jealousy? Will it be my hatred? Will it be my stress? Will it be my anxiety? Will it be those forces or people who abused me? Or it will be my financial situation, my boss? Somebody is going to rule my life. The question is, it's going to be my trauma ruling, or is it going to be the divine in me ruling? You see, at the core of Jewish faith is the notion that at everybody's essence, there is an invincible, indestructible, infinite core. And even if I was abused as a child, even if I endured trauma as a youngster or as an older person, my core is invincible. You know why? Because it's a fragment of infinity. It's a piece of God. It's a ray of heaven. Nobody and nothing can destroy it. So all the trauma that I may endure may exist, but it doesn't define me in my essence. There is a core essence that remains unbreakable, indestructible. And if I can tap into it, I can tap into a reservoir that has infinite confidence, courage, resilience, optimism, joy, wisdom. What happens is when I live life from a place of trauma, I live a much more restricted life. For example, in my marriage, if one of the parties is traumatized, my responses to my spouse are always from a place of trauma, which means from a place of fear, which means from a place of survival, which means from a lack of trust. I can't trust you. I'm always suspicious. I'm always anxious. Must I live my whole life from a place of trauma? Every response is from a place of trauma. The way I deal with my kids, the way I deal with my spouse, the way I deal with strangers, the way I deal with community members, the way I deal with friends, with relatives, the way I deal with myself. My thought process operates from a very, very tiny restrictive places. My choices are now meager. Why? Because my sense of self has been restricted so narrowly. So on Rosh Hashanah, God says, I want God to be your king, the God inside of you. I want you to be ruled by your infinity. I want you to be ruled by the knowledge that nobody and nothing controls you because you're a piece of infinity. You're a fragment of heaven, and therefore you're invincible. Yes, I may have trauma. Yes, I may have a lot of fear. Yes, I may have a lot of anxiety. Yes, I may have a lot of insecurities. Yes, I may have an ego from here to China. Yes, I may be dealing with narcissism or mental illness or mental distress or physical, financial, social, emotional, psychological pressure from every sort and manifestation. And above all, I may have deep pain inside of me. But I could contain it. It doesn't have to contain me. When you realize that your essence is infinite because it's aligned with divine infinity, with the divine core, then I could contain my pain. I could contain my stress. I can contain my anxiety. I can contain my insecurity. I can make space for it. I could contain it so it doesn't have to contain me and define me. And then at every single moment of the day, I can choose from which eye am I going to operate. Am I going to operate from the eye that is restricted and afraid and narrow and in hiding? Or will my decisions be coming from the eye that is divine and infinite and full of resourcefulness and full of power and resilience and joy? That's a choice I can make, but that choice I can make only when I can coronate my inner God as my king. When I could say that this year I'm going to be ruled by my infinite self, but not by my traumatized self. Not because I deny my trauma or my limitations. I make space for them, but I don't allow myself to worship them and to become defined exclusively by them. One of the people who grants me inspiration in this area is a man for whom we, the West and the Jewish world, owe a great debt of gratitude, Winston Churchill. In 1940, Hitler basically conquered much of Europe. And the next address was Great Britain. This is before America got involved in the war. And it was Churchill, who was a person who did not have an easy or stable life, very, very abusive father, who, as you know, smoked a lot and drank a lot and had depression, who basically single-handedly stood up to Hitler. And we owe him a great debt of gratitude because under natural circumstances, he was the one man who fought against the greatest tyrant of human history to ensure that the Jewish people and that democracy and human freedom would remain alive. And I was once reading a biography of his, a biography about him. And there's an incredible little story over there. Churchill suffered from terrible depression. But he once shared with his doctor, a close friend of his, that the way he dealt with his depression was, he gave it a name, and the name he gave it was the black dog that lives with me. And he said, you know, imagine you have a black dog, and the dog is always there with you. You go to the bathroom and he comes with you, and buy food, when you eat, and when you get into bed, the dog. And very often he starts barking. He says, my depression is my black dog. It accompanies me where I go. It sleeps with me. It goes to the bathroom with me. It goes to the shower with me. It's there when I smoke and when I eat and when I drink and when I write my speeches. And very often it opens its mouth, it starts barking, and it makes noise. But I always know it's not me. It's my black dog. It seems like a simple insight, but it's a very deep insight, because it basically means I am not my depression. I am not my anxiety. I am not my jealousy. I am not my stress. I am not my fear. I am not my abuse. I am not my trauma. I am not my sadness. I am not my narcissism. Who am I? I am infinity. I am an ambassador of God in this world. I'm a piece of the divine. That's who I am. Therefore, I am always empowered. I am always confident. My I cannot be destroyed, just like God's eye cannot be destroyed. That's where I want to operate from. So these days of the year, my dearest friends, you and I have the power to coronate God. What does it mean to coronate God? To look in the mirror and tell yourself, and I tell myself, who is going to be the king in my heart? Who is going to be the king in the brain? Somebody got to rule. Either it's going to be my frightened self, my black dog, or it's going to be my infinite self who's going to be king. On Rosh Hashanah, God says, I want you to coronate the God that is inside of you. I want you to coronate the divine self. I want you to coronate your infinite self. That is who can rule your life. I don't want your laziness to rule your life. I don't want your fear to rule your life. I want your infinity to rule your life. Because when your infinity rules your life, then you're never stuck. You're never trapped. You're always empowered. My dearest friends, there's another very powerful message that Judaism has always taught. And maybe the best way to describe it is through the following very humorous, but also very moving story. And it's a story about a couple by the name of Lanz who got married in 1940, and they went on a honeymoon. And they decided to go on a very rustic and original honeymoon. They would rent a cabin in the forest and stay there for 3 days and 3 nights, spend time with nature, enjoy life and their new relationship together, and then they would come back to civilization. Okay, this couple, Adam and Grace, they went on a journey. They rented this very rustic old wooden hut. They go in and they're looking forward for 3 very romantic bonding days between them as a fresh couple during their 1940 honeymoon. And they get into bed at night. They've been quite exhausted. It's been a long ride up to the rustic cabin. And they're visited at night by a very interesting creature called the woodpecker. And the woodpecker decides to bore a hole right above their heads. And all night, the woodpecker is working very, very hard to bore this hole. And finally, he's successful. And a great cavity, an opening is opened up in the roof of the cabin at around 4 a.m. when it starts pouring. And the water comes straight down and saturates the young couple and their blanket and their mattress and their pillow and the whole room and their clothes with a flood akin to Noah's flood. It was an absolute disaster. Not only would they not sleep all night because of the woodpecker, but now they were absolutely soaked, and they spent the rest of the day trying to come to grips with it and dry their clothes and so forth. At night, they finally went to sleep for the second night, exhausted because last night they didn't sleep. And who came to visit? The woodpecker, like a shatchin, like the matchmaker, like the mother-in-law, the shviger. The woodpecker comes to visit. And again, he goes at work. He's not stopping. He's going to excavate and bore a hole. The husband got so angry, he decided he's going to shoot. He's going to shoot it. His wife wouldn't let him. His wife wouldn't let him. And now the hole becomes larger and larger. And guess what? Starts pouring again. So now the second night was completely destroyed. It's hard to believe, but the third night, the same exact thing happened. It was pouring and the woodpecker was back. The honeymoon was over. This poor couple was, in Yiddish, there's an expression, oisgerissen. They were so, I don't know what the right word is, but they were coming close to losing it. They were just exhausted and drained and depleted. But it's time to go home. They rented it for 3 days. It's time to go home. They get into the car and they start driving back to their home, returning from this 3-day honeymoon in this rustic cabin. Now, I'm going to interrupt the story and I'm going to ask you honestly, what would have happened if this occurred to you and your spouse on the way back from your honeymoon? What would have happened if it occurred to me and my spouse on the way back from our honeymoon when we got married? Well, I can't talk about yourself, but I think I would be making a fair guess if I would say that at least many couples, maybe especially Jewish couples, but probably many couples, on the way home, what would happen, what would ensue would be a tremendous fight. And he would look at her and say, I told you it was a stupid idea. It was a ridiculous idea to go to a rustic cabin. That's not where you go on a honeymoon. You go to the Hilton. Next time we go to the Ritz-Carlton. What type of thing were you thinking about? Rustic and old and wood. Ugh, a horrible idea. And she would, of course, as a good Jewish wife, she would come back with a good comeback. And the argument in that car, oy gewalt, Rebbeinu Shalom, I can only imagine it. And for the next 60 years, they would fight about it. Because most of you know that 60 years, most couples fight about what they fought during the first week, even though the fight comes with different words and different expressions, and every argument takes on its own unique shape, but it's basically the same fight repeating itself for many decades. That's what I would have expected. But something else happened. Something else happened. You know what happened? She looked at her husband and she said to him, this was an amazing, incredible honeymoon. Now we got to figure out how. That's what we got to do. And her husband agreed. Let's figure out what made it amazing. And then she came up with an idea. He was a cartoonist. So she says to him, why don't you make a cartoon out of this experience? And that's the moment when Woody Woodpecker was created. 50 years later, this couple, Lanzi couple, was interviewed by a journalist. Now they were famous, rich, affluent, influential. And he looked at the couple and he said, what was the greatest night of your life? And they looked at each other and they both said, very obvious, that night when the woodpecker came to visit us. That was the night responsible for our success, our fame, our renown, our affluence, our great life, and our influential life. It was that night. And I thought about it. They could have easily decided that it was the most miserable, horrific experience of their life. And you know what? It would have been exactly that. Life is often a self-fulfilling prophecy, but they chose to look at it in a different way. And that redefined their reality. We know today in the studies of neuroscience and quantum mechanics, and the two are converging, that our attitudes, our perspectives, what we tell ourselves mentally actually create the neural pathways that facilitate those realities. Or as one of the great Hasidic masters said in Yiddish, tracht gut, wird sein gut. Think good and it will be good. It's not wishful thinking. It's not just, think positively. Yes, it's always good to think positive. It's much more than that. It's a neuroscientific condition. And it's a physics reality. My attitudes, my observations, the way I interpret reality actually has the power to deeply influence that reality. Which brings me to our times today. We're all going through this challenge where we were sitting in our cabins, comfortably sleeping, and suddenly this woodpecker opened a hole above our heads. Suddenly this pandemic struck, and everything that seemed so stable and consistent, the institutions and the routines that we relied on, came to a halt for everybody. Our traveling schedule was interrupted, our malls closed down, our jobs were altered, many of us lost them, our shuls closed down. For of course, schools and malls and sports stadiums and movie theaters. And every sector of our industry has been affected. And it started to pour. And we still don't know exactly what the future holds. But my dearest friends, attitude is everything. One way of looking at it is, I'm a victim and I'm always afraid. Another question you can ask yourself is, not how to make yourself happy and how to make yourself comfortable. A much better question. What meaning can you find in this? What good can you take out of it? What benefit can you glean from this in your life? This will change everything. Viktor Frankl was one of the greatest psychiatrists in the history of psychiatry in the last century. He was also Jewish. He was a student of another famous Jew, Sigmund Freud, or Schleimel Freud, even though he departed from him ideologically. Viktor Frankl ended up in Auschwitz. And Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man in Search of Meaning, explains how he understood early on when he was in Auschwitz that in times of struggle and anxiety, the question of why it's happening to me and how do I make things easier and when will it end, those are very normal human questions. But he said the most essential question for survival is, can I find meaning in this moment? Can I find purpose in this moment? And that's what Judaism teaches us at such moments. I may never always understand why. I may not have the answer to all the tough questions in life. Some mysteries are just unfathomable. And why God does certain things in life, nobody knows, nobody will ever know. I'm not God and I'm not responsible to know, nor could I know. A finite brain cannot understand infinity. What I am empowered to do is ask myself this question. What meaning can I find here? What can I learn from here? How can I grow from here? What type of new awareness can I glean? This you can always do. Find meaning in every situation. Find purpose in every situation. What does this mean in our lives? Maybe this is an incredible opportunity to put in real work in your marriage in a way that you couldn't before. I know I did it in my life. My life was a very hectic life. I traveled constantly. Rabbi Zaklos can testify. I had speaking engagements a few times a week, very seldom that I was home. And in many ways, it was a lot of fun. I was on a plane, visiting people, it's type of celebrity, type of life. You get wined and dined and people give you standing ovations and so forth. Now, after the pandemic and the breakout in March, Purim time, as you remember, March 2020, I haven't left home in the last 6-7 months. In 20 years, I've never been home so long. Every single weekend, every single Shabbat, every single holiday. And really, it was a tremendous opportunity to start dating again. Even though I've been married for more than 20 years, it was an opportunity to start dating, to start taking walks, to spend time, especially on weekends, to study together, to reflect together, to talk about things, to talk about uncomfortable things, to bring out some skeletons. These are tremendous opportunities. Don't let a crisis like this just pass without allowing yourself to reinvent yourself during this time. The same is true with your relationships with your children or with your grandchildren, or with siblings or with parents. This is a tremendous opportunity to work through things, to look at life from a deeper place, to see what really matters, to prioritize, to figure out what makes you tick and what does not make you tick. Let's face it, when everything goes smooth, we never know what really makes us tick because we have too many distractions. We have too many things to rely on, too many adventures in our life, too much fun going on, especially down there in Naples. But New York is also not so bad. Right? Full of distractions. I come from a city called New York. You have heard of it. So they say that here the Serenity prayer is, God, give me patience and give it to me now. Or the other Serenity prayer is, somebody told me that in Manhattan, they got a ticket. They were going 50 miles per hour. So they got a ticket for double parking. People's lives were very, very fast paced. And when my life is fast paced, I get up in the morning, I go to work, I have an appointment of this, my gate, my hakt, my life, my fart, everyone is moving around. It's very, very hard to find out what makes you tick. When we are stripped from the facades, when we're stripped from the external layers, when we're stripped from the external garments, from all the trappings that eclipse us, we have to look at ourselves when we lay bare and naked and vulnerable and raw. It's a blessing. It's a painful blessing, but it's a blessing. I get to know myself. You get to know yourself. You get to know your soul. Vulnerability sets people free because it allows me to shed all those lies and deceptions which I carried around in my relationship with myself and even more in my relationship with others. So these are very powerful opportunities. This is a time you can discover prayer. You can discover meditation. You can discover mindfulness. You can discover what Judaism is in a new way. You can discover a new relationship with God that you never had. These are tremendous, tremendous opportunities for renewal, for renaissance, for birth, for rebirth that are absolutely unprecedented. My dearest friends, you know, one of my little stories that I appreciate is a story about this baby camel. And this baby camel turned to her mother and says, Mommy, why do we have these 3 ugly toed feet? Like, why can't we have just nice, handsome legs and feet like other animals? We have our feet have 3 toes and they're really not very attractive. Oh, Mother says, because we trek thousands of miles, we need sturdy feet. Mother, why do we have these weird eyelashes? Oh, we go down the Sahara Desert thousands of miles. The windstorms would make us blind, so we have these eyelashes to protect us. Mother, what about these grotesque humps? Why can't we just have flat backs? Oh, we're not like the other lazy mammals who sit and pasture in one place for months. We trek thousands of miles without water, without food. We are the only mammal on the planet that can go for weeks and weeks and months without water, without food. How? Because of the fat reserve in the hump that dissolves when we need it, and it gives us the nutrients to survive. Ah, Mother, I get it, says the baby camel. So we have these ugly humps so we can travel thousands of miles without food and water. We have these weird eyelashes so we can travel thousands of miles and trek away without getting affected by the windstorms. We have these 3 ugly toed feet so we can trek thousands of miles with sturdy feet. Mother, I get it. Now I have one last question. So what in the world are we doing locked up in a cage in the Bronx Zoo? What in the world are we then doing locked up in this cage here in the zoo? That's the question that the beginning of every Jewish year summons us. It beacons on us. The question is, when you can identify your real potential, when I can identify who I really am, I don't want to be any more locked up in a cage. I want to live my life to the fullest. I want to flex my muscles, spiritual and physical and psychological. I want to suck the marrow out of life. Carpe diem, seize the day. This then are two of the major points that Judaism teaches us in finding serenity and faith and forgiveness. Number one, to remember that your essence is infinite and never traumatized. Number two, to be able to look at every situation and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? And this, my dearest friends, is also the very profound path to forgiveness. What is forgiveness? It's hard to forgive when you can't forget. All forgiveness comes from the awareness that my core self cannot be destroyed. Nobody can take away from me my freedom to be who I really am. Nobody can. When I can reach that place, then I have the strength to forgive. Forgiveness comes from the knowledge that I don't want to live a small life. I don't want to be petty. As I tell my students, holding a grudge against people is like inhaling poison and hoping that your enemy is going to die. We think that when we harbor grudges against people, we hurt them. Maybe, but we hurt ourselves so much more. We live in this narrow place of life. Now, this doesn't mean the other person is right. Maybe the other person is wrong and you should confront them and you should have an open conversation with them. But I cannot allow myself, you cannot allow yourself to live in such a narrow place where I live with this pettiness and I allow my enemy to live in my brain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rent free. At least if your enemy is living in your brain, charge him rent or charge a rent. Don't let them live in your brain rent free. Forgiveness is the ability to let go and to be able to reclaim my infinite self, which can never be defined by anybody else. Forgiveness is the courage to be able to say that I'm a free person. I can make choices, that you cannot control my life and crush me. Forgiveness is the motto of Rabbi Fishel. Lo amos ki echya. I will not die, I will live. Because whenever I don't forgive, a piece of me is dead. A piece of me is entangled and intertwined with somebody I really don't like. Forgiveness is the ability to cut, to sever those cords, to emancipate myself, to say, you're not going to hold me down. You're not going to define how I make choices. And then I can forgive. And forgiveness finally comes from empathy, meaning we're all weak. We all make mistakes. People are people. People are human. People are weak. People are vulnerable. People make mistakes. I want to be forgiven too for my mistakes, so I can forgive you for your mistakes. My dearest friends, at this point, as we wind down, I want to invite those of you who wish for a meditation. This will be a silent meditation. Again, only if you feel comfortable, you can follow through. If not, you can just watch it as you wish. This is up to you. This is just an offering I'm making to do this little meditation with you. It's a pre-Rosh Hashanah meditation designed especially for this evening with Chabad of Naples. It's not a meditation that I did before and I package it and I just, sell it like Coca-Cola. No, this is original. This is designed specifically tonight, a new meditation for this new year. We're finishing 1 year. We're coming into a new year. And it's a time of introspection. It's a time of reckoning. And it's a time of mindfulness and meditation. So I want to invite all of you, whoever wishes, to do this meditation with me. When you're ready, I invite you to close your eyes and to take a few deep breaths. I'm going to catch my voice there and take a drink. So close your eyes when you're ready. And please take a deep breath, inhale. Let's do this a few times as we try to relax and become centered and balanced. Please make sure you're sitting in a comfortable position. Feel your body, your arms, your legs, your presence, and let's slowly breathe in, and then after a few seconds, let it go out. Please take note of any stress or anxiety or fear that exists anywhere in your body. Maybe right here in your head, maybe in the back of your head, maybe in your neck, your upper back, your lower back, your chest, your torso, your stomach, your vertebrae, your shoulders, your arms, maybe in your thighs and your feet. Notice if there's stress, fear, anxiety there. And if there is, don't get upset at it. Just notice it, give it space, respect it. It's coming to teach something. Just give it space, observe it, notice it, and watch it for a few moments. Don't judge it. Don't try to expel it. Don't get upset at it. Just try to notice it calmly and silently. And now, my dearest friends, can you identify your core self and realize that my core self, that your core self is aligned with infinity. It's free. It can fly. It's emancipated. It's uninhibited. It's not restricted. It's not afraid because of a father who may have been very tough with it, or a mother who may have mistreated it, or a previous partner in life who caused me to shrivel up, or maybe a teacher, or a counselor, or a sibling, or a stranger, or somebody who said something or did something, and maybe over years caused myself to shrivel up. But could I notice that my inner core is still free and wholesome and invincible and unbreakable and indestructible, and that it holds all my joy and all my secrets and all my intimacy and all my confidence and all my optimism and all my truth and all my power. Try to meditate and become aware that this core really exists. It's really, really there. And it's waiting to come out. And it could contain anything you ever experienced in your life. All disappointment, all frustration, all setbacks, all failure. It could contain it all because it's bigger than all of them. It has space for all my fears I don't have to be afraid of any fear. I don't have to be afraid of any emotion, because my infinite I is larger and bigger than any emotion, and it could contain all of it. And on this Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to coronate this I, this core. I'm going to make it my king. I'm going to make it my ruler. I'm going to make sure that every important decision in my life, words that come out from my mouth, actions that I commit and perform, should be governed from that inner sacred space that is infinite. If I have to make a telephone call and I'm uncomfortable to make it, if I have to send a WhatsApp and I'm uncomfortable, if I have to start a relationship or end a relationship or navigate a relationship and I'm so scared, I'm going to consult with my new king. And my new king is my infinite divine core. And my decisions will be made based on that. And whenever you're ready, please feel comfortable to open your eyes and to come back to our gathering here, to our sacred Zoom meeting with Chabad of Naples, and join all of us in this very intimate community of people who are committed to alignment and centeredness and balance and forgiveness and serenity and faith. When you're ready, take a deep breath and open your eyes and join us. And now, my dearest friends, we're going to go to the chat, and anybody could share any question they would like, any comment, any feedback. Feel free to share what you'd like. If you have any questions, or if you want to share anything or say anything, you can either, Rabbi Fishel, you can announce it, or I could read it from the chat as we wish. But I see the chat is open. And if anybody has any questions or remarks, we'll take a few minutes and take them right now.
Rabbi Jacobson, first of all, thank you for that remarkable presentation. Rabbi Serenity has the first question for you.
Yes.
What are practical steps in making the divine live in yourself?
That's a wonderful question. What are practical steps to make the divine live in yourself? I would enumerate 3 steps to begin with. Step number 1 is dedicate time in the morning, a few minutes, to prayer, to Hashem, to God, and meditation. We have in the Jewish tradition a beautiful, beautiful meditation we do the moment we wake up. It's really special. It's a gift. The moment you wake up, before I go to brush my teeth, before I go to shower, before I go to take care of everything, the first meditation a Jew does right when she or he wakes up is we say this little poem of gratitude. It's just like 2 lines. In Hebrew, it's Moda ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayim, but I'll say it in English. I express my gratitude to you, eternal and enduring consciousness of the universe, for returning my spirit and my soul to me. Your faith in me is awesome. That's it. That's how we start our morning. Do you know how empowering that is? I wake up, I don't take it for granted. I pay gratitude to the creator of the world, who has once again entrusted me with another day. He has given me the gift of life for another day. And I say, your faith in me is great. Because more important than you believing in God, well, equally important to you believing in God, is you knowing that God believes in you. So start off your day with a few minutes of meditation, mindfulness, prayer. If you're a man, we have a special mitzvah of wrapping tefillin, which is a way of taking your Jewish blood pressure and creating alignment. If you're a woman, you start off with a woman is always connected even without tefillin, so you could just do the prayers. But I would take 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes a day for a morning meditation and prayer to God. You can use the Jewish prayer book or your own language. That's the first thing, because that allows you to center yourself. That's number one. The second thing I would suggest is every day to study as long as you can. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it can be an hour. Some Torah, which is Jewish spiritual wisdom that helps us align ourselves, whether you use a text, whether you listen to a class, whether you find a website or a book. You can, I'm sure, ask Rabbi Serenity or Rabbi Fishel for references, but to study every day something of Jewish wisdom, because that will expand your horizons and give you perspective. And the third thing I would suggest to you is every single day, make sure to do another person a favor, an act of charity. It can be giving charity to the poor. It can be supporting a worthwhile institution. It could be calling a lonely person and offering them encouragement. Those are three things to begin with.
Brush my teeth.
No, brush your teeth, of course. At some point, brush your teeth. Yeah. Maybe even before the meditation. Well, I brush my teeth. I try to do it a few times a day. Okay, let's go. I see a lot of questions here. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all the thank yous. Tell my mother-in-law, you don't have to tell me. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I just have to get up in there. Can a real New York black and white cookie a day help attain enlightenment? Listen, attaining enlightenment takes a lot of work, but that work is a gift that each of us has. And much of Judaism is an exercise in attaining enlightenment. Every single mitzvah in the Torah is an opportunity to align yourself with infinity. Every single mitzvah, whether it's giving charity, whether it's lighting Shabbat candles, whether it's wrapping tefillin, whether it's hearing shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Every single mitzvah. Judaism has a 613-step program for recovery. I know there's a 12-step program for recovery, but since Jews are much more complicated, so God gave us a 613-step program for recovery. And every one of those steps is an opportunity for enlightenment. Every single one, literally every single mitzvah, lighting Shabbat candles and celebrating Shabbat, eating kosher and giving charity, using a mikveh and even putting a mezuzah on your door. It's an opportunity to become closer to the infinity inside of you. Next question. My hope is that this was recorded. It can be shared and reshared, because more will unfold with each time I listen. I thank you all. I thank you. Okay. Thank you for the meditation. Okay. The next question. What about if somebody really hurt me? How do I forgive them? That's a very good question. So here's the deal. If they don't apologize to you and they're continuing to hurt you, then you shouldn't forgive them, because by forgiving them, you help them, you become an accomplice. If somebody is perpetrating a crime, they have to be stopped, not forgiven. If somebody asks me for forgiveness and they're sincere, then I think the best way is to really think about the fact that we are human. We make mistakes. I also made mistakes. I'm sure you made mistakes. And if somebody is sincere and they want to mend their ways, we have to welcome them. It's hard, but we have to welcome them. It comes, however, the most important thing is remembering that nobody can destroy you. Nobody can break you. They can try to cause you harm. They can cause you harm. but your infinite core is divine. Nobody can destroy God. Nobody can destroy you. If somebody doesn't ask you forgiveness, there is no mitzvah to forgive them. It is the way of the pious. Maimonides writes that the very pious people would forgive even those who didn't ask for forgiveness, but you're not obligated. That's a very personal choice. It is advisable. The great mystics made a prayer every night before we go to sleep. I'm forgiving anybody who hurt me. But that's something that you have to reach. It's not obligated. You can't tell somebody to do that. If you're in that place of consciousness, it's a much freer way of living. This person says, the way I found forgiveness is take the action, release the result. Forgiveness has no cost. But how do you do that? It's difficult. The only way you can do it is if you reach your own wholesomeness. You have to come to a place of very deep wholesomeness. When I'm in a wholesome place, I could forgive because your damage is not hurting me so much. When I'm still traumatized, it's very hard to forgive because you're living inside of me. You know, I said the other day, grudges is like putting myself on fire. I hold a grudge, I put myself on fire, and I hope that you inhale the smoke and get hurt. But I'm the one who gets burned. So when you can really find your own wholesomeness, that's when I think you could forgive. We listened to your words during dinner. I wear braces, and I had to brush right after dinner. I did not mean any disrespect. I didn't realize I was unmuted. No. Why do you think New Yorkers don't have a sense of humor? I'm fine. I have a sense of humor. It's fine. Don't worry. There's no need to apologize. It's really fine. Okay. These are the questions I see on chat. If anybody else wants to ask, feel free to ask now. I do want to take the opportunity of thanking very much Eti and Rabbi Fishel, Rebbetzin Eti and Rabbi Fishel, Zaklos, for this special invitation to such an incredible community. You're so lucky to have the Zaklos family as spiritual mentors and friends and guides, since I know them for many years. And I think they're lucky to have you. It's an incredible community, and I wish you to go from strength to strength. And at this point, I bless all of you, and I send you my love, my good wishes for a good year, a sweet year, a healthy year, a beautiful year, an awesome year, a prosperous year, a year of expansive consciousness, and a year of true healing and redemption for you, your loved ones, all of our brothers and sisters, and our entire world. Thank you so much. Shana Tova.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Rabbi Jacobson, again, for the remarkable presentation. That was incredible. I think I speak for all of us when I say we can now enter the new year invigorated and inspired for our inner work ahead. And I want to thank also everyone for participating, joining today, and engaging us via chat. Eti and I wish each and every one of you a ksil l'chsima taiva l'shana taiva masuka. May you be written and sealed for a good, sweet new year. May you and your loved ones only have blessings and good tidings for the year ahead. While we may not be all together, we're thinking of all of you and holding you in our hearts this high holiday season. And like I said, if you're able to come by on Friday just to see each other's punims, just to say hello, just to, albeit for a few short moments, it would be a mechaya, it would be refreshing. And maybe Rabbi Jacobson, you can come by the drive-thru as well. Okay, no pressure.
Oh, God.
From Rockland County, it's a little far.
A little far, yeah, but you're always invited and welcome at Chabad of Naples. And we hope you can also join us Thursday evening for the next pre-holiday event. Meaningful and a blessed Rosh Hashanah, Shana Tova from Eti and I. We love you all and a good night.
Love you too. Thank you very much, both of you. You're really